Welcome to the Somewhat Creative Show, the podcast where we explore the ideas, the tools, and the stories shaping the creative world. I'm Clark Miller, here with my curious co-host, Rocky Tilney, only partially... Wait, sorry, I jumped to the wrong intro.
Oh, I was going to
It,
say you must have did
changed.
it must have been last
That was
week's.
weird. Yeah, I had it on the right one because I filled in my part, but then...
Well, it was a good practice.
sorry about that. Got the
I was going
right
to say,
one
that's
pulled
not what
up.
it says on my
I
script.
know. I was like halfway through. I'm like, wait, I put something else here. All right. Take two. Welcome to the Somewhat Creative Show, the podcast where we explore the ideas, the tools, and the people shaping the creative world. I'm Clark Miller, here with my somewhat AI-generated co-host, Rocky Tilney.
Beep, 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 beep.
There you go. That's the AI-generated part. Today on the show, YouTube leans into generative AI and the rise of slopper, Meta's hunt for a creative director of AI ads, why AI-coded projects still need human cleanup, and later in the show, we're joined by Jory Desjardins, co-founder of BlogHer, now She Media, startup advisor to more than 30 companies, and co-founder of Optionality, a platform helping experienced professionals embrace bold new career moves. Let's clean up the slop and jump in. Did I get that right?
Desjardins?
Wow. See, the French is not my native
Not
tongue,
mine either.
apparently. So I apologize. We'll have to have her say it for us in perfect pronunciation.
There you go. Well, this is actually a very interesting issue. So one of the things that is available now, which will probably available for a while, is AI podcasts. So if you did an AI podcast and we weren't real humans, real people, we wouldn't have those pronunciation issues or
Slip-ups.
name
That's how you know it's really
issues.
us.
Yeah, and that's what, some people are not using M dashes or they're putting spelling errors or grammar errors in their posts so they look more human.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell everybody if you use ChatGPT for stuff, just take out those M dashes. Put in a
And make it
regular
look,
old hyphen.
put some mistakes in there. But it's weird. I mean, it's very human to make a mistake. And if everything's
True.
so polished and perfect all the time, it's just going to be a weird future.
I think that's been what has identified a lot of the AI generated video and stuff and images, right? It's been the imperfections, but it's also been the like too perfect. Whenever you kind of see that it's a little too imperfect, you kind of know that's got to be some AI. Well, we've had a lot of interesting AI generated stories in the past few weeks. All the AI announcements from Meta, what is that, 2 days ago, from their big announcement with the Meta glasses and more integrated AI, the screen now showing in the glasses, all the speaking of having technical problems, like not getting names pronounced right, Mark had quite a bit of technical difficulty with his own glasses. I don't know how much of that you saw.
I didn't.
You didn't catch any of that? Oh man, it made me feel so much better about my life.
I have to check it out now.
You gotta check out the fails, the meta fails, because it's really, it does make you like, if the team that is, among the richest companies in the entire world, and Mark Zuckerberg, like third richest person in the world, with all the technology that they have at their disposal, and like having this event at a place they've probably rehearsed it over and over, and they have an entire tech support team and all this stuff. It's like, if they can't get things to work right, it makes me feel a little better about whenever I screw
live
stuff
demos
up.
are very, very dangerous.
Yeah. That's why,
high risk, high reward.
All the robot demos we've seen over the past year have turned out, thanks to the information reporting, a lot of those have been uncovered to be just people operating them. No AI involved.
Yeah.
For the demo, at least. You had NVIDIA. Have you seen the little AI robot that NVIDIA made for Disney?
No.
No, you
I
gotta
don't believe
check it out.
so.
It's supposed to be walking around in the parks and stuff now too, in the Star Wars land, but
Oh, I know. Okay, no, I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
The little
have
droids?
you seen that little droid that walks
The
around?
little
And
droids.
scurries
Those
about?
are.
That was an NVIDIA
those are really
creation.
cool.
Yeah, that was in partnership with NVIDIA, and they, had him walk out on stage, and with Jensen, the founder and CEO, really interesting guy. But apparently that all turned out to not be AI, that it was just operated by somebody with a little remote control.
That's what I thought they were. They're all designed to sort of interact with the guests.
Well, they're meant to interact,
like
but they're supposed to
autonomously.
be Yeah, they're supposed to be completely AI, and like they talk about the AI that's in there that recognizes people and gestures. Same with the Optimus robot at the Tesla events.
So
Um,
dang,
that's
you're not
that's
even
all been
safe having a character job at Disneyland anymore.
no,
Like AI
no,
is coming for that.
true. Yeah, they'll be well, it'll be an interesting movie when all the robots turn on the park guests. It's Jurassic Park 18.
Yeah, isn't that already a movie? Isn't that the Five Nights at Freddy's concept?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
all
I
the
haven't
all
seen
the
it.
animatronics come to life and try to kill you.
There you go.
So yeah, so
Well,
lots of stuff, lots of stuff. I agree. I think it's we're seeing obviously a lot of stuff in robotics.
mhm,
Animatronics are getting really, really good now. Just the movement and things like that. The mechanical aspects. You're marrying sort of the mechanical technology side of things with the AI side,
mhm.
which is
Software and hardware
happening
coming together.
fast.
Mhm.
Um, but what I was really interested in and curious about too is the content creation. YouTube had a big announcement earlier in the week about their push to more generative AI content.
Yeah,
Um,
tell me about this.
AI podcasts have been going around for a little while too. Allegedly, there's a lot of AI podcasts out there that are people are listening to and probably don't even realize it's AI hosts on the
Mhm.
podcast. There's AI music. So rather than getting a score done for a movie or a TV show, now you could have AI produce the
Yeah.
music. And we still have to do a whole show on music because I think that's another fascinating area that
Yeah,
we're
have you
heading
used
into.
any of those music tools, the
I have not.
AI generated? I've used a
No, I
couple of
have.
them, and it's interesting. It's interesting. It's hard to get it really dialed in, especially this is another area where we've talked a lot about you really do have to know music and what you're asking
Mhm.
it to like do and perform for you in order to so it's a chicken and the egg. It's like how do you get it to output a good song if you don't know how to create a good song?
Well, also, and if you're not, usually you score something against the visuals, against the
Mhm.
emotion of the scene. Is that something you're able to do with AI? Could AI
Yeah.
produce and
I don't
map
know. It seems like
emotional
it's still
sound
very
that
human
goes along?
driven.
I would think so. I would think so. But, we're seeing video production that is looking really, really good as
Yep.
well.
Yep. And
So
there's
anyway, the
been
question I
all the
had after all this was, are we sort of outsourcing the human creativity to bots
mm,
in many ways? And
yep.
this has already been part of our conversation with creative, generally with illustrations, graphic design, video, music now, podcasts. We're going to lose, I feel like we're going to lose our own human point of view. It's all going to be synthesized with a knowledge base that's already out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and talk about the imperfections that people introduce and not having those, it's all going to be so sterile. But I don't know. The other side of this, I guess, is one thing I wanted to talk about was the rise of vibe coding. And I don't know how
Hmm.
much of this you've dug into and your practice, but I've attempted a couple of them. I haven't loved the results, but I think it's one of those things again where you kind of have to get good at the prompting and you have to really dig into it. But there's also been this. This is an interesting time to talk about AI because I feel like for the past couple of years it's been all about the rise of AI and it's like going to take over everything, going to replace all of us. And now we're like in the past few weeks or months have seen this kind of realization that it's kind of hit the peak and now we're like getting to that more realistic vision of AI where you have this rise of vibe coding fixers is now
Hmm.
a profession in software
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
your specialty is going in and fixing all the problems that were introduced because it was vibe coded and AI, brought
Hmm.
in a bunch of parts that don't the software didn't need or whatever. It's breaking because of the AI software. So there's now we're kind of getting to that point of like it's not taking over everything. It's got a lot of problems. It doesn't look real. Like maybe it'll get there, but there's still a lot of human input, a lot of trial and error.
I think
I
we
don't know.
haven't found its use case yet, like specifically. Like, what is it really, really good at? Most people are using AI. I just read a report the other day. Most people are using AI in personal contexts,
Hmm.
like for asking questions or searching, things like that. I think it was over 60% of the use was personal. So businesses are still trying to figure out their use case for it, using it efficiently within the workplace. There are probably really like specific use cases, I think, that where it's going to be very effective to use
Hmm.
AI. Research, for example, you know, collecting large amounts of data and synthesizing it into actionable things, stuff like that that would take humans longer to do can be compressed into these really short, data collection periods and then,
Yeah, yeah.
producing results. So I think that's still going to kind of get shaken out in terms of how AI is used within organizations and also within consumers. I think consumers are trying to figure out what are the limits of AI in their lives. How can it improve their
Hmm.
lives? But going back to your vibe coding comment, you're absolutely right. There are lots of problems with it. I've actually tried working on a couple projects, just personal projects,
Yeah.
to build a software product, and it's pretty amazing how quickly it could actually produce something that feels like a proof of concept.
Hmm.
It doesn't have all the integration and functionality. You still have to do a lot of that, a lot of API
Yeah.
connections
Yeah.
to get, external data sources and things like that.
Yeah. And it
But
seems
it
like it
does
takes the least common denominator, right? It does like the
does
bare
it
minimum.
yeah, UI UX patterns are from a library. So it's not creating new UX UI, it's creating
Mm,
basically whatever's the existing pattern today for UX UI. So based on certain libraries, in other words.
hmm.
JavaScript, it's writing based on libraries. CSS, HTML for web apps, it's doing based on existing libraries. So it's pulling all the pieces together. The problem is, as you said, there's a lot of slop and stuff in there. And my personal sort of interactions with it to date have been a lot of errors or a lot of things it didn't understand that I asked it
Yeah.
to do, or a lot of debugging during the process, and I have to pay every time I ask it to fix a problem. I'm paying for that with a
Hmm.
credit. And I'm like, why? Why are you producing code that has problems? Why do I have to correct that? Why aren't you correcting that
That's a fair point.
first? So I see a lot of problems with the monetization of some of these vibe coding platforms as well
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I think need to be ironed out. But it does get you to a point where there's a proof of concept. At the end of the day, if I
Hmm.
really wanted to go to market with a product that I vibe coded, it would have to be rebuilt by a team of software
Yeah.
developers.
Yeah. Well, and in my kind of research into the topic, it one of the issues that they're having is when you create it using a one of these coding tools that's AI driven, there's not a great way to go back and like update the code. And so if you do have it sent off to like somebody that's going to fix it,
Hmm.
when you try to do a version 2, it's like you can't re-ingest the fixed code into the program so that you can work from the fixed code. It's like you're still working off of that broken code, and then you have to
Yeah.
like then send it back out to your software engineer to fix it. So it definitely seems like it's not a silver bullet for that holy grail of allowing non-programmers to easily build their own apps and build anything they want, program anything they want without any kind of programming expertise.
Right.
So
No,
it
I
does seem like we're
agree.
just a long way off. We're a long way off on a lot of stuff. I really, over the past couple of years, everybody's been talking about how in 2, 3 years we're gonna just not have jobs, and all the coding's gonna be done by AI, and all the images are gonna be AI generated, and it just seems like we're not getting there. So I don't know.
Yeah. It's like it's interesting because I felt like we moved so fast to where we are today with AI technology. But at the same time, I also feel like we hit a wall. Like what else can, and that's why I mentioned use cases, because I don't think the use cases that where it's really going to be effective or are things that I am familiar with at this point.
Hmm.
They might be more nuanced, industrial, things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think you
Um,
nailed it when you said like the data collection, the data analysis, like anything that's just going to take someone a long time to do. That's where it's going to do the best job. I mean, that being said, I think you're definitely already seeing it take a pretty big bite out of the CGI kind of world
mhm, sure.
of visualizations. Like all the movies that Netflix is doing now are cutting their budgets and using AI for all of their special effects. And I shouldn't say all. I mean, I don't know the percentages or anything, but it seems like we're seeing a lot of that where, production companies are just not getting the budget to do it, number one. And number two, everyone knows like, oh, you guys could just drum this up this big action sequence where the car explodes. Like, just put that in AI and just have the car explode, and then cut back to the real people, real camera work and everything. And I think it's a fair assessment of where AI can be useful in creative.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Again, it's pieces, right? It's like it's taking little chunks. It's not taking the full apple. We're not creating an entire movie in AI generation. We're not creating an entire application in AI. It's like individual elements will maybe be taken over by AI, but it seems like overall somebody's still got to piece things together and fix things. And that just seems like where we're kind of landing with it. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Another area that I think is going to be interesting to watch over the next year or so is how social media is adopting Gen AI content.
Yeah.
Um, there
Yeah. So
there's
tell
a
me
new.
again about the YouTube AI models
Well,
that are
that's
coming
true.
out.
And it's the same. YouTube is essentially saying, it used to be your primary action when you go to YouTube is upload content. You've produced something, upload it here. Monetize it, share it, do all that stuff. Now what they're saying is, oh, if you don't have anything to upload, that's okay. Create it here and upload it, or not upload it. Create it here and then promote it. So what does that mean? It means we're going to have a lot of AI content on these platforms. And we've already seen that on social media accounts where you're looking at a
Hmm.
video and you realize, okay, that's AI, or photos, that's AI. And you see a lot of misinformation that's going to be. Remember when we were all afraid of deep fakes like 3 years
Yeah.
ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah. Now it's everywhere.
So now it's like, okay, this is how you create deep fakes, right? You can use
Hmm.
AI to do this. Um,
Yeah.
so is this gonna lead to more misinformation? Is it gonna lead to more what they call slopper content? So slopper is
Hmm.
someone that is just producing and pushing a bunch of AI content out there. So I think some of the challenges that the social media companies are going to have is like moderating or flagging this content, detecting if it's AI generated
Hmm.
content,
Is there
because
incentive in
there is
that though?
incentive. Well, it's twofold. One, if it's low value media, then there's the incentive for social media to flag it or make sure it's ranked
Labeled. Yeah.
accordingly.
Yeah.
That's valuable. On the other hand, if it's high value content, even though it's AI generated, and this is already happening, people are making money off of AI generated content.
Yeah.
They If it stays on the screen for any measurable amount of time longer than regular content, then they're going to keep it. There's an
Oh man,
incentive there.
yeah, it's
The
a huge
algorithm's going to
incentive.
say, "Hey,
But
this is good." They're staying on it longer.
exactly? But what is the incentive for them IDing it or labeling it as AI generated content? That's my question.
Um,
I don't know what the incentive is for a social media company to say like,
the only
this
thing I could think
content
of,
just would let you know. I don't know.
yeah. Well, the only thing I could think of is just the people wanting that. They want to, do you want to know what's real or what's fake? Or do
Yeah.
people not
Yeah.
care?
I don't know. I mean, the most recent one that went really viral was that, I don't know if you saw this. There's a whole series of them, I think that somebody did, but the one that went viral is like little bunny rabbits jumping on a trampoline.
Yeah. Yeah,
And a
I did
lot of
see that
people
one.
didn't even know it was AI. It wasn't labeled. I think originally it came from a content creator who labels like their work as AI generated
Mhm.
material.
Yeah.
But once something takes off and it leaves that
They could
person's original
yeah,
account,
recycled and shared, right?
yeah, not a lot of people go back to the original account to look and see what's in their, bio, their description of their work. So I think a lot of people thought it was real. And, honestly, some of my favorite accounts now that I follow on social are people that go in and identify like videos that are popular, and they go in and go, okay, let's do our AI analysis and see if this is work that's done by a human, if this is real. And
Mm,
I think recently they did one on Trump giving a press announcement after the unpleasantness over the last couple of weeks, and a lot
yeah.
of people said he was AI generated.
Oh, I know which
And
one you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and this expert went in and like identified the things that don't seem to be AI generated, and some of the areas where it could have been like morph cuts, which I think a lot of people are confusing with AI generated, that don't
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
movie magic and editing. Because a lot of, there are a lot of morph cuts ever present in our world that we don't really realize.
Yep.
And for
Absolutely.
those of, for those of our listeners our tens of listeners that don't know, a morph
Bunch
cut
of
in editing is basically where, you have somebody standing in one place, or their hand is here, and then you cut to another scene and their hand slightly over here. Well, you can do a morph cut where it kind of blends the two things. So your hand will kind of move without having that be an action in the actual film. It's just like
yeah,
something that the video, algorithm
automatically
can do
does.
without AI.
Yeah.
Probably getting better with AI, but anyway.
Yeah, it's essentially stitching two scenes together. So there was probably an edit or a cut it would have looked like a jump cut if you left it as it
Yeah,
was.
but to the point, it's like very interesting to see this world of like of vibe coding software engineers that come in and fix. They're vibe coding fixers that come in and fix vibe coding tools. There's a world of content creators that are just doing the analysis of like, is this an AI generated image? Is this an AI generated video? And they're reviewing, like, that's a content creator now. That's like a thing you can do. And so it's interesting to see, I guess, the world, the response to AI,
Mhm.
the jobs that it's taking, the jobs that it's actually creating, because this is a whole world of people that didn't exist before. I don't know. It's an interesting moment.
Well, we talked about this, I think, a couple weeks ago. We talked about designers that were getting clients coming in and saying, "Hey, we had this logo or a graphic created with AI, but it doesn't quite look
Hmm.
right, or it's not quite meeting the mark. Can you fix it?" And I think some people, ethically, some creatives will be like, "I'm not touching that. We have a process for this." And then there's others that will say, "Okay, I'm not going to make as much money editing this graphic as I would if you hired me from the beginning." But it is revenue. It is
Yeah.
still money, and so maybe they're
Well, and
charging a
if you,
couple hours to recreate it, but, it's a tough one. That from an economic standpoint, I get it. I don't know if I would
yeah.
necessarily wanna touch a AI thing either.
Well, and that's, I mean, I was reading in Forbes about the vibe coding fixers that come in and and it's like, that was the question they were having too, is like, do you market yourself as the person that touches that? Like, is there a
Mhm.
niche where you can find a lot of work if you're the AI fixer? If you're coming in and like somebody gives you an AI logo and they're like, can you make this into a real logo for us? Is that a niche you can market yourself as and find a lot of work in? And is it defeating like your overall, like, that's the problem, is you don't know if that AI is eventually going to take that over more, and like you're going to lose work because it's getting better and better, and like the fixing you were doing is now obsolete, so you're kind of marketing yourself into a corner. But I don't know, it's an area where it's not clear what the direction is. So
Right, right. Yeah, so that's where we are today with AI. It changes weekly. We talk about
I
the
know.
I remember our first couple of shows, we, like, talked about AI, and we were, like, cringing, like, "Why are we talking about this?" But it
Yeah.
but now, any type of creative field, not just creative, but media now in general, we have to look at AI and what its impact is on the creative community at large, but
Hmm.
just anyone that's in a space that's building content, creating content, managing creative teams. It's affecting everybody.
Yeah,
So,
it
until
really
we go
is.
back to crayons and paper, I don't think we're, gonna get away from this anytime soon.
No. But I will tell you this, the reaction of people to it has been interesting to see. Like, the artwork and things that are resonating now are starting to become more about the story behind them and not so much like the finished product. I think you're seeing that a lot in like, even in our podcasting world that we're sitting in right now. It's like the material that does really well is like behind the scenes and like stuff that didn't make the final cut. Like, it's not just the talking heads or whatever, more of the background, how the podcast was made, and that kind of material does really well. Off the cuff stuff, it's interesting to see. I even was seeing something recently in the world of art, and
Mhm.
how people, over the past 10, 20, 30 years have been more concerned about the technical aspect of the art and the finished product and everything. And now it's kind of, they're seeing a lot of art sales overall, I guess, have fallen quite a bit in the traditional world, like the art auction world. There's not as many sales going. They're losing money, or not losing money, but they're just seeing a, like, not as many people buying, right? And the new generation of buyers are really looking for things that have more of a story to them, have more of a,
Right.
what is the three N's? There's the three N's of the art world. It's like nuance, novelty, and there's some other N in there. But anyways, it's basically like, how hard is it to make? How original is it? And what's the like story you're trying to tell?
Right.
Like, and
Right.
people are more concerned about that story portion than anything else now. And that's what they're seeing in the art world, is a rise of like people wanting the art that tells more of a story, and they know the story behind it and they know the person behind it. And I think that's a reaction to like the ease of making something. Is there's no wall now, but there's still that wall of like, what are you trying to say with it? Because any of us can make a
Absolutely.
Pixar animated film now with pretty much no problem, but can you make it with the heart and the soul of like a true, storyteller, I guess, is the moral
Right.
of the story.
Well, great conversation. I think the AI conversation isn't going to stop, and we're
Hmm.
probably going to jump right back into it with our guest coming up next.
Let's do it. All right. Joining us today is someone who's been at the forefront of entrepreneurship, media, and brand building for more than 2 decades.
She's the co-founder of Blog Her, Now She Media, and advises over 30 startups as a brand and go-to-market expert through her firm, Candor Partners.
Most recently, she co-founded Optionality, a membership community that helps experienced professionals make bold new moves and embrace their next act.
Please welcome Jory Desjardins to the Somewhat Creative Show.
Yay!
All right.
Jory!
Great to be here.
Welcome to the show.
I do not
Jory,
speak French, so that was a
I know.
stretch for
We
me to
were
say your last name.
in our intro. I
It's
did the
perfect.
intro, and Rocky had to do your welcome there, because I think I completely butchered your last name there.
It's okay. Do you know what? When I was in high school, I went by Jardins, and it's funny. I can
Mm,
always tell when I've met people because I just didn't want to bother with the French pronunciation.
Yeah.
And I came from Illinois, where we had towns called Des Plaines. Like we just
Hmm.
said it in the American way. And
Yeah.
uh
Yep.
a- and so I'll find people in my life who come back and say, "Oh, Jory Desjardins, good to see you." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're from my
I think
past. I
that's
have to
literally,
remember
yeah,
now."
that's
And
literally
yeah,
how I tried to say it.
oh my gosh,
You
that's
can see
funny.
my Oklahoma roots coming out.
it's okay.
Are you really
I'm
from
from the
Oklahoma?
Midwest. I
Uh, I'm not from Oklahoma, but my family all came from there, and I was born in Colorado, so it's it definitely comes through. And I would say the Central Valley of California, where I grew up, is sort of the Oklahoma of California. So it's
so
it's a
there you
little bit
go.
of that.
I was like, "Did you not know
Hmm.
where Clark is from?" I mean, how long have you guys been working together?
Well, that was the first time I heard Oklahoma, but that's more of his homeland, apparently.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
I would say
Yeah.
it's more my heritage.
Well, Jory, we are super excited to have you.
Good to be here. It's great to see you both again. It's been a while.
It has. Before you came on the call, we were talking about AI, as we tend to always do these
Hmm.
days. And I know it's one of the topics we've talked about one on one before too. And first of all, I wanted to get kind of a little bit of background on how you started working with startups specifically. That's, I think, going to be probably one of the things we talk about the most today is kind of our work with startup companies and where they are today. But I want to know a little bit more about how you got into that type of work.
Well, I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I was in publishing for many years and was living in New York, moved to California for a publishing startup. And that kind of got me
Mm,
into the tech space. And print was dissolving before my eyes. And I knew that I was excited about digital, but didn't know how I wanted to play in that space. And I accidentally joined a digital media company, and I loved the ride. It was so much different than the traditional publishing model, where you kind of join and then every year you get to add a slightly different name to your title. So, I was the associate, no, assistant editor or editorial assistant. Then the words change the next year. Then you're the assistant editor, then you're the associate editor, then you're the editor, then you're
Hmm.
like the whatever editor. And it was so linear. And with every step, you could do something a little different. You get a little more responsibility. And then I'm thrown into this startup environment where, hey, if you can do it, go. Right. And for me, that was incredibly heady. I was obsessed with it. I knew this is where I want to play, but then I didn't know what I wanted to do in startups.
hmm
So It was the dot-com bust. The company I was working
Mm.
for promptly died, as all companies did at that time. And I was exploring, and I got into this thing called blogging, which at the time was kind of like, yeah, I know some people. They're very technical, and they're doing this thing called blogging.
Yeah.
And I entered that space, and I started my own company in the blogging world with two other co-founders. And that was how I became an accidental entrepreneur.
Mm.
Loved the ride. It was a really amazing 10-year run. And then after I exited my startup, I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I knew that I was always addicted to new stuff and
Hmm.
new languages. When I mean languages, I mean new rules around new tech. And I developed crushes on things like blockchain
Hmm.
um, and eventually AI. And that's what led me down the path to wanting to work with founders who were building companies in these spaces. And having built my own company, I learned some tricks. I feel like I'm still learning tricks. There's always new tricks to learn, but
Hmm.
it sort of shaped my path in discovering new companies that I think are bringing something into the world that's important, and usually with a little bit of a tech twist to it, and it needs some storytelling. That's my jam. I love to storytell for emerging
Mhm.
tech. That's how I got into it.
Was that the motivation to jump into the world of blogging back then? Was it just telling more stories, or did you, because you're saying you were working for a
Yes.
editorial startup, publication startup, so I'm wondering, like, was it wanting to do more of your own stories? Like, what was the motivation to start that company?
Well, I start companies that it's totally self-serving. I was a writer for a long time, and I was a print journalist and editor. I worked in magazines. And what I loved about blogging is that I could write anything, and I didn't have to wait for an editor to pick it up. Could actually like
Hmm.
build my own
Yeah.
empire. And it was so addicting to me. I thought I have to start something where we enable other people to feel this way too, more empowered to have their own printing press. That's what my co-founders and I all shared in common is once we got into blogging, we realized, wow, there's this locus of control where we could be creative and find audiences. We don't have to wait for someone to
Hmm.
pick us up or to get distribution. We could actually build it on our own.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that was the thread. And from there on, I've always enjoyed companies that enable that for people in whatever way, whether it's jobs, whether it's art, whether it's, I mean, marketplaces. That's the model, is
Hmm.
making these things
Lowering
available to
barriers
people.
to entry.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of in line. Funny enough, with like what Rocky and I were talking about before you joined us, we were talking about, the lowering of the barrier to entry for people to get into like producing their own applications using AI, and people now designing their own logos for their business using AI, and then
Yeah.
having to come back to an actual designer to fix it, and it's interesting that motivation, I guess, to be your own boss and to like not have any of those roadblocks in the way of publishing or creating something and putting it out into the world. I guess you could say that's the story of 21st century, right? All the tools that we have now, everything we're creating now is just trying to get individual people closer to putting their own thoughts and ideas and creative and words and whatever it is more in front of all of us without those, I mean, some may say without safeguards and without like approval
Well,
and
there is
Yeah.
oversight.
that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the
Well, and
Yeah.
downside to
that
it.
is
The
Yeah.
upside is, yeah,
I think that's
you
where
get.
the business opportunity lies too, though. So
Hmm.
you're totally right. And I remember telling the story of my company 20 years ago, and it was so revolutionary that we're talking about, many to many versus this very one to, you have to get past a
Ivory
door.
tower.
You have to get past,
Yeah.
yes, the ivory tower
Hmm.
of publishing. But the other thing that we did with Blogger in particular, but I think that all companies that succeed in this space need to do, is that we bridge that gap of understanding. We worked, believe it or not, with the FTC on guidelines for, because the blogs were emerging and they were just being completely I
Yeah.
mean,
The
abused.
Wild West.
And right.
Yeah.
And you had people who, that's exactly right. There were people who were just throwing content out there with no accountability and just wanted to get paid for, say, a review, but you didn't know that they were paid with the product or what those terms
Mm-hmm.
were. So we help to establish rules of engagement for the space. And with every product and every iteration of tech and marketplace that I've been working with, there is that a similar need for rules of engagement. And an example now would be I'm working with an AI company, and they're bringing therapy for pets. I mean, they're pet behaviorists. There's only 100 in the United States, by the way, who are certified pet behaviorists. You would think, wow, I thought there were more than that. It's because people assume that the vet can handle that, or a dog trainer,
Yeah.
but they may
Yeah.
not be
Yeah.
certified pet behaviorists. So when
Fascinating.
bringing something like this into the market, there's so many questions. AI, like mental health, is a very delicate thing that you don't just relinquish it to AI. So there's a
Right.
whole set of rules that are being written right now for services like that, where if you're going to be providing professional services that are heavily credentialed professional services to the market, what does that need to look like in order to
Yeah.
scale it? Right.
It's kind of
And
Right.
that
I think we're just learning
USDA.
how to do that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
certification process. I think that's going to be important. I think it's something that I haven't thought about. And like one of the other things we were talking about before you joined us was like watching the rise of like creators that are analyzing AI slop, for example, and like trying to tell you if it's AI or is it real. And it kind of goes along with that idea of like we need a certification process. We need a area like a label that you can slap on your work if it's been certified to be like, this is organic,
Yeah.
homegrown, American, non-AI editorial,
Yeah. And
Yes.
one of the things we were talking about too was, what's the financial incentive for social media companies? We're talking about YouTube primarily adding generative AI tools to their platform now. So it used to be upload and share your content. Now it's create your content on the platform and create it with AI. And there's AI. Obviously, you could do an AI podcast now with AI voiceover. And so with an AI script. And so my question, I always go back to this as the core issue with AI is at what point do we sort of lose our humanity in the process of efficiency or of monetization of content or putting stuff out there? Because that social media companies couldn't care less how much content was put on their platforms if there was a
Right. It's
financial
about
incentive for
volume.
that piece of content. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I think about this all the time. I really do. There was a real horrifying, well, it wasn't horrifying. It was thought provoking article written by, he's a real brilliant guy. His name is Brian Solis, known
Hmm.
him for many years.
Hmm. Yeah.
He's a thought leader, and he writes about technology and innovation. And he recently posted, this was an actual study. I can't remember if it was a collection of GPTs or if it was one in particular, but they looked at an analysis of what most people are using, use cases for 2024 to 2025. And just in the course of 1 year, there has been massive shifts from, oh, I'm going to have it like recommend a few places that I can go to on vacation, to therapy. We have
Hmm.
completely relinquished our
Hmm.
trust over to GPT, to AI. And we're
Yeah.
doing this for increasingly personal and specialized areas of expertise that normally you would think only humans could handle, right? And
Mm-hmm.
handle well. So we are in this very pivotal period right now where the question is, how much of it are we going to give up? And for me, as a marketer and someone who has worked with companies, I've seen it. It's so effective using AI for things like, oh, the press releases, and we have all these articles. We need to
Yeah.
improve our SEO. So let's just go throw it over to, ChatGPT, write up 50 articles and post them and call it a day. And there's
Mm-hmm.
value in that productivity. But I think what we lose is that we lose our discernment around what is good. What is good design?
Hmm.
Yeah.
What is truly
Yeah.
Yeah.
groundbreaking design?
Let's talk a little bit about your work at Optionality. And
Mm,
this ties into kind of the whole workforce thing going forward.
yeah.
You're helping other professionals sort of figure out what their next play is going to be, their next act. How does AI weigh into that? I'm sure that's a question that a lot of people, they want to pivot or shift career, and they're thinking,
Yes.
well, is AI going to make that thing I want to go into in the future obsolete, or do I lean into AI and does that give me a better chance of being successful?
So, optionality is a community around the future of work, but it's really for experienced professionals who are kind of in a place in their
Hmm.
career where they're asking, all right, what's next? And for many of the people in our community, AI has been a displacer.
Hmm.
Sometimes they have, they're losing jobs, and let's be clear, there are many people in our community who are in tech, and I think AI has been a displacer for many people, and so it has directly impacted them that way. But in other cases, they are finding it, they can't get to the next level because they need more AI fluency. And for many who are in the community who are not in companies, they see it as something that they need to embrace to help them to do things independently. And I can speak as a consultant and as a fractional. I get so much more work done. It has enabled me to be 10 times bigger than I am because I can get more done. I can have professional quality content, design, images created. It has actually saved me time and money. And once you kind of have that unlock, it can open up so many more doors. So there are a number of people in our community, and I know this because we have workshops around it, we've had webinars around it, and people have really raised their hands for this kind of education. They want that unlock. They want to take the next step in their independent careers, not just in corporate. But that's where AI really plays. For me professionally, I mean, I work with companies that are all AI companies. If you're not understanding AI and the implications that it has on an industry, it's really difficult to get any funding. I'll tell you that. But it's also
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
game
Yeah,
changer.
yeah, for sure.
Um, on so many levels, but for this particular community, it's just been an enabler, and I think people want to understand it and where it's going so that they can have that advantage in their career.
Nice. And is that so? Is that happening on optionality? Is that the kind of the discussions that are happening? Is like people being interested in? Is that the sort of events like you're doing, bringing kind of
Yeah.
that education to people?
It is part of the discussion. This month, it's been a big one. I wrote something about the new FOMO, which is FOBO, fear of being obsolete. And this is an
Yeah.
actual phenomenon
Mm,
that has been researched in the workplace. And it is basically because of AI and technologies that are displacing so many people. And
yeah.
so there's kind of this almost panicked desire to understand the tools, use the tools, start working with them, start looking at roles that require them. All of this is happening. And it's been happening most of the year. We just really focused on it because we called it back to school theme. And we did an upskilling, a webinar about upskilling, but we also have sessions where we're working with our members who are, in pods, and they'll have like, hey, let's do a little show
Mhm.
and tell. What am I using? What's making my life work a little better? So we do it on an ongoing basis and in many different ways. But we also have seminars and other things around the future of work, not just AI.
Nice. I love the art. We'll try and get a shot of the art that you have in that FOMO article because I'm looking at it now and
Thank you,
it's a
Midjourney.
nicely
All I
AI
did.
generated artwork.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Well, I
It's you
had
can tell
to,
the
it looks like Russian or something, like the copy in there. You're like, what language is that? I can't quite.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the classic mid-journey typography issues that you run into
Yes,
sometimes.
They don't do it.
that's
Doesn't,
right.
yeah, AI does not do text very well. I mean, there are some specific platforms where it'll actually generate text, but yeah,
Getting better every day though.
you can't rely on that. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
But the FOBO is really an interesting concept, and I think it's something we've all sort of struggled with to some degree.
Hmm.
And when AI first, I first started playing around with it, it was more of a novelty. Like, oh, this is kind of fun. I could create these crazy images that are very abstract, almost Salvador
Hmm.
Dali like, melting clocks and things like that. But now it's
Not
like, oh, there's
intentionally.
actually, yeah, business application for these. And I think we're starting to see it more into actual creative workflows where you're able to do specific tasks with it
Hmm.
and put it, as a component of a larger initiative or product or project. So that is where you start to wonder, like, does creativity in the future just need a facilitator, or do you still need someone that has kind of the creative chops to be able to facilitate that work going forward? In other words, is it a UX UI question or is it a creativity question? And so that is the FOBO that affects me the
That's a hard
most.
one. That is, it's interesting. So I'm not a designer, and both of you know this because I've asked you to help me with various things in the past. But I have an idea. Sometimes I have thoughts in my head. That is a creative process, right? And what I found AI to be
Hmm.
very helpful with is helping me to show what's in my brain. And the better I get at prompting it. Right? But I also know, as someone who is not a designer, that I am better at knowing what I don't want than what I do.
Hmm.
So I think
Right.
Hmm.
Right.
that's a really hard thing. You could prompt AI all you want, but if you don't really know what's going to invoke that feeling or capture what it is that you're looking to capture, that is not something AI can help you with. And I think there is a person with expertise who can say, oh, I hear where you want to go with that. Let me interpret that for you. Let me interpret what it is you want to see. And I'll give you some options and you see what resonates with you. Whereas AI will
Hmm.
Hmm.
throw you, I
It's
mean, there are
funny.
times where I'm like, no, it didn't get it. It didn't get what I was looking for. I
Yeah.
think I know, but I don't.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then it gives me what I asked for, but that's not it. Right.
It's funny. That kind of takes me all the way back to one of our first episodes of the Somewhat Creative Show. And Rocky was talking about, I think it was Rick Rubin,
Yeah.
long time ago, and how he doesn't play instruments. He's not a technical producer. He's but what he says what they pay him for is his taste. And I think what you're saying too is with all these tools at your disposal and with the ability to create anything, it's like what really the human element comes down to is like identifying what is going to fit your taste and fit your audience taste. And AI still can't really do that. It's like you still need that person to have that creative spark and that idea
Yes.
of what they're looking for. And even if it's not an idea of what you're looking for, it's still like weeding out the things you don't want. Like you were saying,
Hmm.
like what you don't want. So it's you can kind of have it go through iterations and work through the process yourself. And I to some degree the FOBO to me is not as scary as and I always go back to this every time, and I would love to get your take on this, Joy, because every conversation we have about the future of AI and creativity for me always goes back to I think my job and my ilk, my community of people in this industry is somewhat safe because we have the expertise to know how to use these tools and that taste level and identifying the problem and solutions, and we have that ability that's been honed over 10, 20, 30-year careers. I don't know, and that seems like it's protecting us somewhat from the FOBO for the people that have yet to become part of this community, part of this industry, any industry really now.
Hmm.
But what do you tell a young person that's starting out, coming out of college, or somebody starting a like the hurdles, because you don't have that background, you don't have that institutional knowledge, that technical ability to know what you're looking for. You haven't built that taste up yet. What do you tell somebody who's coming into these industries now, and what they're supposed to learn and how they're supposed to navigate it?
You really nailed something that is concerning to me, right? It's great that AI will help you write the press release, but you'll never know if it's any good until you've
Hmm.
actually had to write it yourself. And you've gone through some iterations and you've had someone say, nope, nope, nope. Differentiation is going to be very difficult for someone to learn if all of that gets skipped. All of those,
Hmm.
I used to think, gosh, what a pain. I used to read the slush pile. My first job out of college was at a book publisher, and I had to read the slush pile and elevate from the slush pile manuscripts that I thought might be worthwhile. I think I might have had 2 that I picked out of hundreds, maybe thousands that I had to go through. And yeah, it was onerous, but damn, did I learn a lot. And did I understand what is a book? What is something that is market worthy?
Yeah. And
And
now that the job of identifying those things is now going to be done by AI. It's going to be like, you're not going to have a person going through the slush pile. You're going to ask
that's
AI,
right.
like, identify the ones
Yeah.
of these books, these manuscripts that are going to perform the best and are technically the best according to AI. I don't know, but it's like that job is no longer there. So that journey that you had, and getting to the point where you could launch your own product or launch your own blog that you could tell your story on, it's that pathway is no longer open. That's my fear. And I'm sorry I cut you off there.
Completely.
So I'd love.
No. I guess I share your fear. I share that feeling. I share that I can tell you, I know some entrepreneurs who are working on the problem, and they're
Mm,
looking at it from this perspective of so many college graduates are graduating, but they're not going to get jobs because there are jobs that are already replacing what an entry-level job does. So
yeah.
how do you bridge that gap? And they're actually trying to upskill people and trying to
Yeah.
integrate skilling within at the college level and right after
Hmm.
college to help bridge that gap so that they immediately are ready for that next role. But a
That's really
lot of
fascinating.
that, they're transferable skills. Taste
Hmm.
is a transferable skill. It's something that you develop over time. And what they're doing, they're trying to seed digital experiences so someone can have that experience. Like imagine, you're working in a restaurant, right? And you need that experience interacting with people to actually become better at making recommendations and serving people, right? Even at that level.
Yeah.
So it's providing those experiences and different types of scenarios so people can actually have it and experience and understand how to do it. Because imagine this, imagine a whole population of young people
Yeah.
who enter
Right.
into the workforce at the mid-level. Oh my
Mm,
God, I shudder to think, right? Because they don't have an appreciation for what they just are there, right? If they
yeah.
don't have that experiential experience, to
Hmm.
be as redundant as possible, how do you really know? That is the core of skill, is
Yeah.
experience, even in the
I
most
mean,
mundane
Yeah.
pieces
yeah.
of life.
It's what builds us up, right? It does seem like what you're saying is correct. Like, we are going to have to reimagine what college is for. And I can't, as someone who did not go through the traditional pathway to my career, and I did not go through a traditional like 4-year education, I've talked to so many people that did, that are like, yeah, I didn't learn anything in college. I learned everything at that first job that I had. Like,
Yeah.
that's, I think, the story we can all relate to. It does seem like the solution has to be that first education, that college education, has to get people ready for that mid-level job. It has to get people ready for like that step over the AI and start directing it. And that just, it's an interesting problem, and that does seem like the solution. And Godspeed to the startup founders that are working on it, because man,
Well,
that is a
it
hurdle.
used to be, the promise was you go to school for 4 years, you graduate, you have a great job after, and you're set for life, right? And you get to buy a house with the white picket fence.
Yeah.
Right.
That was all set for you. That was the promise. And now I think we're seeing a difference where, obviously you have to be able to think critically. So that's, I think, one of the things that, college can help with: philosophy classes, critical
Mm,
thinking, writing, that sort of process. I think those are fundamental skills, I think, to have.
Those
But
are
now we're seeing
transferable skills for sure.
to everything else. And now we're seeing this sort of movement to, though there are jobs like vocational type skills, technical skills that are going to be here forever. Electricians, plumbers, AI
It's like,
won't be
which
taking
ones?
those jobs
I
anytime
don't know.
soon.
Have you seen the robotics they're doing? I don't know, Rocky.
Well, maybe. I know we were talking
In
earlier
10
about
years.
Disneyland having like robots like roaming now the parks. And I'm like, they're even going for the characters' jobs now.
Yeah.
Like those are all robots and AI.
This feels like Wall-E.
It really, I mean, that movie is a glimpse of the future. That it feels more and more like we're getting to that point of nothing's going to be done by a human. And because
Right.
the jobs you're talking about, Rocky, too, it's like I could imagine a scenario where there's a special robot that comes to your door and they've got all the wiring and they come in and they can identify all the problems and hook it all up. And it's like, that's your electrician now. So even that job, I don't know.
Maybe.
But again, somebody's got to train, like there's got to be training data, there's got to be like, I don't know,
Well, I think
that's
that
what scares me.
there needs to be, and perhaps it's in higher education, but education for defining a career path in this
Mm,
very complex job environment. Knowing that AI is here, I think there needs to be education in finding your path, because these paths are, as you well know, Clark, because you didn't have a traditional path. I certainly
yeah,
didn't either. I graduated with I was an English major, and which meant that I graduated completely unmarketable and had to just figure it out once I got out. But
Hmm.
um, but just having the degree was supposed to be enough. And we know that it's not. So how do we help empower people to figure it out and to forge a path, a career from a very
Yeah.
complex environment?
So I want to switch gears really quickly. Because I do want to talk about one thing before we go into our rapid fire questions at the end here. I do want to talk a little bit about go-to-market strategies and startups.
mm,
I know that's something we've all have experience working with startups over the years. And I want to know, because Jory, you've worked with startups for years. I want to know if there's anything fundamentally different about startups today, what they're going through, some of the challenges and strategizing their working on their go-to-market strategy versus even just, 2 years ago.
Oh
Are you
my
seeing
gosh.
any profound shifts?
Yes. And I'm going to try not to make this sound like a big fat rant, but so I got my company, well, I built my company starting 2005. We were funded in 2007 with a Series A, straight to Series A, because we had somehow figured out how to start making money. And it wasn't a ton, but it was enough for them to see, oh, wow, there's a market here. And it was not a thing for us. As I started advising companies after my exit, it was all about the seed round. Seed rounds were pretty much, the new Series A.
Yeah.
Like, was about, all right, we need to make enough of a case to get the seed round, which helps us build the product. And then from there, we need to get our first set of customers, or, people buying it, and enough of a track record to get to the A. In the last 2 years, that game has changed so considerably. And I will blame AI as the culprit.
mm,
For this as well, because the bar is raised for how far along you need to be, because AI has
Mm,
enabled so many founders to build more earlier. So
yeah.
there's an expectation of having revenue out of the gate. You want a seed round, you need 1 million in ARR, 1 million in revenue to show
can't
that
just
you're
come in with the
ready for
deck.
that. Right.
Yeah.
So versus just coming in with a deck and a great management team. And for many entrepreneurs, they need that revenue. They need that capital before they can even get to the revenue. There is this sort of catch 22 that is inherent in the conversation now. And I know, because I'm working with a lot of startups, and they're piloting on not very much, right? They have to create out of not very much to get to a place where they can start to build in earnest.
Right.
And so that part has shifted a lot. And AI in so many ways has made it easier to build companies early on, but it's also made investing in those companies, the expectations way higher.
Mm.
That's fascinating. I would have loved to talk a lot more about startups this episode, but we do have to move on to our rapid fire questions here, which are,
We don't have,
I
that's your
think
choice, Rocky. That's your choice to move on.
it
We
is,
could sit here for another hour and talk to Jory, and this has been an amazing conversation.
it is
And
a
I,
choice, but we do have a time frame we have
all
to
right,
abide
fine,
to
fine.
in respect of our guests.
And
We
respect to
could
our
go on all
audience.
day.
Yeah.
I could
We'll have you
go on
back
all
on.
day.
We'll have you back on. This has been
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Okay. Rocky, hit it.
I have some fun questions here. All right, so your morning fuel, coffee, tea, or a workout?
Coffee.
I like that.
Mm,
It's a good
yeah,
answer.
yeah.
It's
I
a good
gotta get that.
answer.
I gotta get that cup of Joe in
It's
me. I
just the
can't do anything
answer.
until.
it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of a softball, I guess, underhand pitch. When you need a burst of inspiration, walk, journal, or scroll?
Walk. I'm
Get
a
out. Yeah.
walker.
Get outside.
No, the scroll is like, it's just like a rabbit hole, and it
It's
doesn't.
an antithesis to inspiration, I think.
What's a better founder trait? Boundless optimism or relentless pragmatism?
I'm going to say one because that's more me. I'm a boundless optimist, but I've also
I
had my
think.
butt kicked many, 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 many times. It's like
I
I
think you
need
kind
to have a
of.
pragmatist in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like the optimism is it goes hand in hand with that willingness to get back up because you think you can
Yes.
do it again. I think
It doesn't have
the
Yes.
to be
pragmatist.
either or either,
It
right?
doesn't have to
Can
be
you
either.
you could be a
No,
combination of the two. I would say I'm 80% optimist, 20% pragmatist.
no, I think I
I've
might be
had to
flipped.
work on the pragmatism just because, I mean, there's no point in beating your head against the wall over and over and
Yeah.
over again.
Yeah.
Work anthem: 80s power ballad, 90s hip hop, or today's pop hits. Why are these the only? I don't know why there's only the Rocky
You
wrote
could
these.
make
This
up
is not
you can make up your own, Clark. You don't have to use those.
or
Make up your own.
classical. I don't know. You could go anywhere you wanted. What is your
Sorry.
work anthem? What do you like to
But
listen to?
what was it? You said 80s what?
80s
Power
power
My
ballad.
ballad.
options. The
I don't even
short-term
know.
memory sucks.
I mean, this is why we have AI to remember these things.
That's
80s
right.
power ballad, 80s hip hop, or today's pop hits, as if those are the only three genres of music.
We'll throw
Do you like to
throw
listen to
classical in
music? I
there.
guess this here's the
Music
here's the
scores. Yeah.
real here's the
Well, you
real
want to
question
know
is do
what you
you
should throw in there. And this is sort of the default in my car because the only time I drive these days are to take teenagers to and from places. So they have it on
Yeah.
TikTok. TikTok radio. That's what I
Oh,
listen to.
TikTok
But
radio.
I will say there are some gems.
Okay.
I don't
All
get
right.
this whole sped thing. Do you know, like the music when it's sped up? And so they'll take older music, like Nelly
Yeah.
Furtado's sped up.
Really?
And
And
my
that's all it
girls
is.
act
There's
like
nothing
it wasn't. No, they do other music too, and there are some new discoveries, but they also take like early 2000s music and they speed it up. So it's Lady Gaga sped up. And they act
you
like
know,
this is new, right? They're like, "Oh yeah, I
yeah.
love this song." I'm like, "It was out 15
That's like
years
20
ago."
years old.
That is something. It's funny because we this summer my wife and I went and saw Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they sounded great, but yet you could really kind of notice that that genre of music, the '90s era music, is definitely not as fast paced, and it's not as. I think it's probably something you could look back through the history of music and see how the
Yeah.
progression has become like faster beats per
Tempo's
minute
higher.
and
Yeah.
yeah, tempos going high. Like I think that's probably true, but it's interesting that they're taking that music and just going, let's just speed it up. Doesn't work. Yeah. All right.
Very original.
That's funny.
That is funny. But those are all great answers. I didn't think TikTok would be the music soundtrack of your day, but that actually makes a lot of sense the way you
Learn
explained it.
something new. Learn
I
something
will
Yeah.
new.
say this, that my daughter sort of when she found my CDs and she created a playlist on Spotify using a lot of the artists that she discovered from my CDs. So I do have
Mm.
a Spotify playlist and it's got The Smiths, it's got Mazzy
Ooh.
Star, it's got
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
amazing, and I
Fade
never
into me.
listened to this stuff on the radio. You had to like go somewhere, you had to like have a cool friend who had a great
Yeah.
collection to get to
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
stuff back in the
Really
day.
cool.
But
These
that
are the
is
deep
my
cuts, but I know this is, and we're going off on a tangent here, and I'm making this longer. I realize that, but this is a
please
great
don't
topic.
worry.
My kids also discover music from the 80s and 90s, and there is a strange affinity that today's youth and teenagers have toward that music. And I'm wondering, when I was a kid, I don't remember like loving stuff from like the 60s and 70s. Like there were maybe a few songs that I liked. So I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is there something different about the 80s and 90s that captured sort of magic in a bottle that we can't reproduce these days?
Myself that question because of course my kids also have taken all my Y2K clothes. They're like, why did you not keep all your juicy couture? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah. It's all come back.
I didn't know it would be cool. I'm sorry. They absolutely live for it. And I do think that we are, in many ways, maybe it's the AI thing, we are regurgitating a lot
Yeah.
in culture these days, right?
Uh,
It's something that sounds like something else, it's just sped up, or
yeah.
it's with, it's sampling, right? It's something similar to, but not exactly. And maybe we're ripe for something totally original. And a lot of this music, the Chili Peppers, I mean, come on. They were originals.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that there's probably, wow, this was pretty cool at the time. I mean, and I've been going
I
through
think
the
you're right.
whole lexicon of
Yeah.
old movies from the 80s and the 90s. And while I took it for granted, my kids think of this stuff as like, wow, you
Gold.
grew up when this
Right.
stuff came out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Well,
My
I
kids
think
aren't
that's
there
a
yet.
fascinating way
Something
to
I'll
end
watch
the
out for.
show.
Yeah, I love it.
They'll get there eventually. The Goonies is a must watch for them, Clark. The
Oh my
Goonies.
gosh.
Classic.
That is a classic,
Um,
although some of the movies didn't age as well.
no, they certainly don't. Certainly don't. Well, Jory, thank you so much for joining us on the Somewhat Creative Show.
Thank you, Jory.
I loved it. Thank you.
And if you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're feeling generous, leave us a review, a comment, a like, whatever.
And as always, stay curious, stay creative.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.